Appreciate it. We have a few things to talk about, but most of them are going to be specifically talking about Bradley Chubb and others that could be possible trade candidates right before the trade deadline. I mean, the Broncos are obviously not doing well. So there have been some rumblings about getting some draft picks back. So before we do jump into that, I just want to say make sure that you go and check that like button. Also, subscribe to Mile High Huddle YouTube. And make sure you come back to the show. This is a fun show that we try to bring in a lot of history. So today we're going to have a Mile High legend talking about somebody that should be near and dear to Broncos' hearts. So stay tuned in the show for that. And also make sure you say thank you to Scott in the background, taking care of all the stuff back behind the scenes, so we don't have to, which is an incredible treat for people on the show. Just have to focus on what we want to talk about, which is what we love to do. So again, welcome to the show. All right. The Broncos are obviously not doing too well. That's an understatement. They are sitting at 2-4, got the Jets coming up, which we thought would be kind of a pushover at the start of the season. We're looking on paper, but they are not. So this is a tough task ahead of them to beat the Jets. They are on fire, really. They're rolling right now. Solid, well-coached team. Broncos dropped this game. They are definitely out of any type of playoff race if they aren't already. You got a couple games before the bye and a couple games to go before the trade deadline. So the Broncos can have, can turn this thing around in the next two games, or can be completely done in the next two games, and that will tell the general manager George Paton a lot about what he should be doing at the trade deadline. November 1st is the deadline, so we got get to watch them play the Jets, like I said, and then the Jaguars in London. So before the bye week. So what should the Broncos do? Should they trade away their key players, get some draft picks? Well, before I really dive into that, I just want to say that I'm not a big believer in getting rid of your impact players just for draft picks. And the reason I say that is you know what you have in a player. You know, someone that's been there 3 or 4 years, you know what you have. And you don't know what you're going to get in the draft. The draft is a crapshoot. It's 50% at best, even in the first round, of getting an impact player. So you're taking a big risk by trading someone away when you know what you have. So I really don't prescribe to this notion of trading everybody away like some people get all excited about it so they can get more draft picks. But the Broncos need some draft picks. You know, obviously they went out and got Russell Wilson, which so far has not reaped many rewards. So they don't have a first-round draft choice this year, nor do they have a second-round draft choice because of that. So the Broncos need to figure out a way to get some more draft picks. So the first name that everyone brings to mind is really Bradley Chubb, right? Bradley Chubb, in my mind, is a good player. He's not a great player, and he's definitely had problems with health. Now, he's still a valuable player on this team. Now, if this was Bradley Chubb with a couple years left in his tenure, and they could dupe somebody into giving up a nice draft pick based on reputation, even though he's pretty much going to be done in a couple years, then I'd have no problem with it. But Peyton needs to really kind of think about this. And there's a lot to think about when it comes to Bradley Chubb. He's shown this year that he's a valuable player. And Randy Gregory is not on the field. So, and that's been the trouble with Randy Gregory is he's not been on the field enough. He's spent more time off the field than he has on the field in his career. And when he's on the field, he's a good player. Don't get me wrong, but can George Paton trust that he's going to stay healthy and stay on that field to play out his contract? And that's a big question mark. I know Baron Browning is really, really come on. I think That's another factor into deciding what to do with Bradley Chubb. Tony Pacheco. I think that's how it's pronounced. Maybe I'm wrong, but if I butchered it, I'm really sorry. But thank you for coming in for Facebook Stars. Really appreciate it. They need to fire Hackett, spend money on an O-line. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the prevailing notion, really, is Hackett has not been doing his job well, which is pretty obvious. He seems to be kind of stuck in doing the same old things. He's not got an offense really that is working well with Russell Wilson, and he's made some pretty poor decisions in games. So, this notion of firing Hackett is a it's kind of a sound decision, really. I don't know if they're going to make a change in the midseason. I have my doubts that they will, but if this continues, he may be a one and done coach. And you are correct. The O-line did not look very good. And part of that has to do with all the changes. I mean, Garrett Bowles is out. He's done for the season. Quinn Miners missed several games. There's been a lot of shuffling around of that O-line, so there's not been any continuity, which really is an important piece. And now they've taken Fleming and put him on the left side, have Billy Turner on the right. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get that offensive line going. But you're absolutely right, Tony. They need to go out and get some offensive linemen this offseason. And if they have to spend money on it, they have to spend money on it. But but the center position and even Reisner has not been playing well. They need to do something for sure. DH3, thank you for dropping by. I really appreciate it. I really hope we don't trade Chubb. Well, that's what we're talking about here to start this show off. And I'm kind of with you on that. I really don't want them to trade Bradley Chubb. I mean, like I said earlier, he's a good player. He's not a great player. I think he had the potential to be great, but he's kept getting hurt, wasn't on the field enough. So he's not, in my mind, living up to his fifth round or number 5 spot in the first round draft choice. But that's behind us. Is this player going to be really a great player for this team going forward? And so far, I haven't seen it. Yeah, he's got 5.5 sacks. He's come up big in a couple games. But I think he was pretty much, almost invisible in that game that they lost, last week against the Chargers. I mean, the Broncos needed somebody to step up, and he didn't do it. He didn't make a play. Baron Browning, who we were talking about, did make a play. And I think that, him going forward, Baron Browning's going to have a big part of this, part of this team, a lot of playing time. But is that enough to say, you know what, we need to let Bradley Chubb go and we're going to stick with Baron Browning and Randy Gregory? And, the Broncos are stuck with Randy Gregory. They gave him a big contract, and whether he plays or not is still, to be seen. But I think trading away Bradley Chubb may not be the best option at the moment. I mean, if they want to do it, once they make some moves, the year's over or whatnot, that's a different story. But to just trade him at the deadline, I don't know what you're going to get for him. If they could somehow talk them another team into giving up a first round draft choice, which I don't think would happen, then that's a different discussion. But I don't think you're going to get that for Bradley Chubb. So do you think that a third round pick is going to be valuable or as valuable as Bradley Chubb going forward? Now, I know that they're probably thinking about whether or not they should re-sign him in the offseason. I mean, his deal's up. So maybe they want to get something for him because he's not in their future plans. Now that's another thing to consider, but I don't think he's going to command a huge contract because he's not been playing that great. So he will get a decent sized contract. Maybe someone will give, based on what his draft pedigree was, get him, a nice pick. But the real problem is with trading people away. You usually do that when you want to rebuild, but the Broncos can't rebuild. They are stuck with Russell Wilson now on a big contract, and they need to start winning sooner rather than later. Excuse me just a moment. Sorry, I still have the remnants of being sick from a couple weeks ago. My nose is still running. I apologize. But yeah, so the Broncos need to keep the impact players that they have. But, with Baron Browning coming on, and if they believe Randy Gregory can come back and be healthy and play, then that they might consider it. I just don't think it's a great idea. I think they need to, circle the wagons, so to speak, get get people going as best they can. Try and build for build the team up, show what they have the potential of, and then go into the offseason with some different plans. ID Williams, 1972. Great year, 1972. Thank you for coming in. Mile high salute. I just can't over on how we are playing right now. Yeah, I just can't get over how you're playing right now. Who fits the offense better, Russ or Brett? Because Russ seems to be struggling to grasp this offense, or is it the coach and play calling? Well, thank you for coming in. I appreciate it. I have not seen you in here before, so I really appreciate the support. Appreciate the comment for sure. Yeah, I can't get over how we're playing right now either. Or how the Broncos are playing. Excuse me. I am. We had high hopes. Everybody had high hopes for this offense and this team in general, and that has not met our expectations at all. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I don't think it's just one thing. And I don't know if Brett Rippon coming in would make a difference. Maybe it would, maybe a fresh set of eyes, but what's going on with Russell Wilson is odd. I don't think the offense style really fits his style right now. I think he's wanting to be a pocket passer, and he's better on the move. He doesn't have to run the ball and don't have to do the run pass options and things like that, but just get him on the move a little bit, move the pocket, do some things to get him a little more comfortable. But what I'm saying they need to stick to the run. They just keep abandoning the run. I mean, most of this offense should be predicated on getting a run game going where you can get bootlegs, things like that. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I appreciate the comment. It is mind-boggling how bad they have been on offense. It's just, I can't even start to imagine how people feel, because I know how I feel watching these expectations I had, and they were sky high, just kind of go into the dumpster in just a few games. So I'm with you. It's not pleasant to watch for sure. So speaking, going back to Bradley Chubb, I'm on the fence, man. I'm leaning more to keeping him than to trading him away. But if they have absolutely no, um, ideas of re-signing him in this offseason, then maybe you should. But I really think the Broncos need to give this a chance. I mean, and maybe I'm maybe I'm being way too positive, and it's kind of blinding me. Like, I'm trying to be optimistic, and I still think that. And now, if the team was just getting completely blown out every week, then yes, all right, let's start making some big changes. I mean, they are a few points away from having a winning record. They just couldn't get it done in the end. And that's why you need those impact players at the end. That's why Bradley Chubb needed to step up this last weekend and make a play. And he didn't do it. But they need these impact players to step up and make one play. One play could have changed that game, and they could have ended up winning instead of losing. And the Chargers ended up making those plays, and the Broncos didn't. And that's, and they still lost by 3 points in overtime. So as bad as it is, they haven't lost by much. A couple plays here and there could have changed it. So if the Broncos can somehow figure it out on offense, even a little bit, you might see a turnaround, and that will lead to something better going forward. Maybe not this year, but next year and the year after. And I talked about this on a show a few weeks ago, looking back at history, how the Broncos themselves started out bad and able to turn it around and made it to the playoffs. And then that was a catalyst to something good going forward. So trading away your players means you're giving up. However, there are other players that I'm interested to hear from the comments who we should trade, who we should see the Broncos trade. And I've got a few in mind, or at least one that I think is worth exploring. But let's check out the comments and see if we have anything going. ID Williams again. Oh, sorry. Peter B. Thank you for coming in, Peter. I appreciate it. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the comment. I feel like trade talk should be strictly focused on Judy and Melvin Gordon. Get those two out of the organization. Well, that's the big hubbub, right? They were Judy was seen on the sideline. Looked like he was complaining. Melvin Gordon's definitely disgruntled. And I think those are the two that you kind of start with, along with Albert O. Jerry Jeudy has not lived up to his draft status. He's not gone out and been a game changer for a first round draft choice wide receiver. He should be playing a heck of a lot better. And Silent One, thank you for coming in. Jeudy is one of the worst draft picks in our history, considering where he was drafted. Well, I'm not going to go that far. I there have been some pretty bad ones in the first round, is even at the wide receiver position. I mean, you got Marcus Nash and then a few others, but Willie Middlebrooks was terrible. You've got the worst one, Teddy Gregory, back in the olden days. I mean, there's been some pretty lousy ones, but you're right though. Jeudy has not lived up to his draft status, and then complaining about it on the sidelines, which was what it looked like to the person watching from the cameras. I don't know what he was saying. It looked like he was complaining. You know what? If you're going to complain, you better have done something in that game in order to give you, make it valid. Make that your complaints valid. But he didn't do squat. And he hasn't done squat all year. I mean, he's had a couple decent games, but like you said, for where he was drafted, he needs to be a heck of a lot better and an impact player. And I think you could get something for him, right? I think you could actually, if you traded Jerry Jeudy, you could actually get something valuable for him because he's still on his rookie contract. He has a load of potential. I mean, he's a great route runner. Problem is his in his head. He drops too many passes. He's complaining. I mean, that's to me is a sign of a disgruntled player who maybe does need to be jettisoned from the team. The problem is, who are you going to put in his place? This year, you got a couple options, but they're not great options. So, I mean, Kendall Hinton plays his heart out, but he's not, athletic ability and receiving ability. He's not on the level of Jerry Jeudy for sure. You got Montreal Washington, who's a rookie. There's a few options, but that's the real rub is who do you replace him with? And maybe it's you just don't care at this point. You're out of the race, so get rid of Jerry Jeudy. Melvin Gordon's another one. Man, this whole thing with him is kind of strange. I mean, Hackett. I've talked about this before. Hackett should have benched him early on, not let it linger and keep fumbling, and then to bench him in the last game and then say he's starting this game. It sends a wrong message. And, I don't know what was said in the background, what their meeting was all about. Maybe they had a great meeting and, had this moment of clarity. I don't know, but it doesn't look good from the outside looking in for sure. But the problem is you don't have many people to run the ball right now. So, I mean, I like Latavius Murray. I think he should be the starter. I'm not sold on man, I'm drawing a blank. Sorry, on the other running back there. I'm not sold on him. Boone, sorry. He looked really good in preseason, but he doesn't have great hands out of the backfield, and he hasn't really shown much running the ball. However, they just need to stick to the run and see what happens, and that's part of the coach's fault too. They just haven't run the ball enough. But yeah, and then Albert O is another one. I mean, they're not using him. He's got a lot of athletic ability. They're just not using him at all. So, not really sure why. Why that is, and people are saying it's because he can't block. Well, I don't know. He's in the doghouse, and it's funny. He's in the doghouse, and Melvin Gordon isn't, which is kind of strange. And if anyone should be in the doghouse, it should be Melvin Gordon. But I think those three are the top candidates to trade. But you'll get something for Albert O for sure. I don't think you're going to get much for Melvin Gordon. If you could get a 7th round draft choice, that would be amazing. I think because at his age and his fumbling, what's going on, and then looking at his disgruntled attitude, I don't think teams are going to take a chance on him. Lawrence Rivera coming back in. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by from Facebook. Judy, let's talk about his age real quick and how young he was drafted. I hope we can let him grow. That's one player that needs it. Yeah, that's true. I mean, sometimes it takes some time for people to mature and change their attitude. I mean, Von Miller is a prime example of that. He was going down the wrong path. It was when he was younger, and could have went the wrong way. But they brought in someone who was a leader who really changed Von Miller's attitude and how he approached the game and how he to become a leader. And that was DeMarcus Ware. But the problem is, I don't see a real leader on this team to do that for anybody. I mean, so far there's not been a leader that stepped up and at least from what I've heard or seen, that has nipped this kind of nonsense in the bud, right? This complaining on the sidelines when you haven't done anything, or Melvin Gordon going in front of the camera and talking. Like, who's the leader that needs to step up? I mean, Justin Simmons been gone for 4 weeks. He's a good leader, but he's he's just working his way back into it. It should be Russell Wilson, but he's not that type of personality. So who's the leader on this team that's going to make Jerry Jeudy see the light, so to speak? I don't know who it is, but man, who is Jerry Jeudy going to change, and how and why? I mean, that's the big question. Is he going to change? Yeah, you're right. He was young coming in, and young people, they do things that they wouldn't as they're older and they start to learn more. But there's no Peyton Manning on this team to tell people how to be a professional, from what I see. And frankly, most of the people on the team have never experienced a winning season. So at least at the Broncos. So what have they done? Who's going to sit there and go, oh, well, what have you done? You basically had a losing record almost your whole career. So there's a lot that goes into it. But you're right. Jerry Jeudy, he needs to grow up. And I think the whole team needs to grow a lot. But those are the three candidates in my mind that should be traded. I think Bradley Chubb, it's strange. I don't think you're going to get much for him. So why get rid of him? I just, with his, unless someone is willing to take him on and give him a good contract, just keep him around. If he does get another contract, you'll probably get a third, maybe a fourth round draft choice for him, which is probably what you're going to get if you try to trade him at the deadline. So, and one more comment on Chubb. His health is a concern, but he looks good so far this year, really. If he was like had nagging injuries again, that would be a something that to consider. But he's really seems healthy. He seems to be playing well. Yeah, it's a tough one for me on Bradley Chubb for sure. Is there anybody else, somebody that you think that the Broncos could get something for? Throw it in the comments. I mean, there really isn't. The team is just not very good, and very few people are willing to trade for people who are players who on a team that aren't very good. It's not like, I mean, like Carolina are getting rid of their players because they got rid of their coach and they were just going nowhere. And I can see them trading and getting rid of some of their players because they really were going nowhere and they need to rebuild. The Broncos can't rebuild. They're stuck with Russell Wilson. They need to bring in players, and they don't have the firepower to do it. So they're going to have to hope that they can get somebody in the in free agency that pans out, and maybe get lucky in the draft. Silent one, Justin Simmons. That's an interesting name. I mean, Justin Simmons is really loved in Broncos country. I think the team really likes him. Obviously he got hurt, came back, he was rusty, but when he's not rusty, he's one of, if not the best free safety in the NFL. So that'd be a tough one to get rid of. But I mean, you're going to get something for Justin Simmons for sure. I mean, he's locked up for a while. That's an interesting name to throw out, but I think they're going to keep him. I don't think they're going to get rid of Justin Simmons. He does have value though. But again, like I said, you can't blow it up. You can't get rid of these players who are good, are really good, just for the sake of doing it. I mean, yeah, this year is bad, but that doesn't mean that the years going forward, you're going to be bad. It's just, you've got a combination of things going on right now that have made this team awful.
but not so awful that they're getting blown out. So this one is an interesting. This is an interesting year for sure to look at this team. In very few times I looking back in the last 6 years where I said, man, this team could really be undefeated if they just made one play. And this year you could actually say that they could be. They could also be, 0-6. So it's one of those interesting years that it's tough, tough to kind of figure out what this team is all about, really. But I think it starts with Hackett. I think Hackett needs to be a little more flexible and start to change up the offense a little. Just small tweaks. Don't try and blow it all up. Just small tweaks, and that's where I think the Broncos need to go. So I just want to say one thing. This show really we like to think about the historical aspect of it. So the Broncos have been doing a tribute to the 25th anniversary of the Broncos' first Super Bowl. And if you're a newer fan, go back and watch that season. I mean, that season was full of adversity, and the Broncos went in kind of went into the not as it went in as a wild card, even though they were a very solid team. They lost a few games that they probably shouldn't have, and then they went on to win that Super Bowl, first Super Bowl in history. Got the monkey off their back. John Elway got the monkey off his back. They actually went out and beat a team that was at the time the greatest or the biggest point spread in the Super Bowl history, and the Broncos ended up winning. It's incredible. Go back and watch that game, watch the history, think about the Super Bowls that they lost before. And it's, just check out what the Broncos have been putting out. They're going to honor that team at halftime in the Jets game. And I really hope the Broncos team this year can honor them as well by beating the Jets. It's a big task. The Jets are playing great, but it's at home. If things can click, they can probably do it. Yeah, Keith Brugman, thank you for coming in from Facebook. Maybe they could run the wide zone. They practice all throughout training camp and preseason. I've been saying that all season. They are running zone concepts, but the problem is, from what I see and watching what I've seen, is they are not getting the second level very well. So they're not getting that. They're maybe trying to do the zone concepts, but they're not executing it well. And some of that's communication and knowing when to who has who and getting there. But like Glasgow early, and couldn't do it. He wasn't fast enough to get to that second level. Cushenberry has not been able to do it well, and frankly, Risner, who's supposed to be much better in this scheme and being able to do it, couldn't do it either very well, effectively and consistently. So you're right. Like, they're trying to run that concept, but they're not doing it well, and they're not committing to it, and they're not committing to the run. So my opinion is, you've got Miners back, you've got Billy Turner on the line, probably your two best offensive linemen right now. Just start running behind them and see what happens. Commit to the run. See if Miners and Turner can open holes for these running backs, and just get something going other than Russell Wilson. They're trying to rely only on Russell Wilson, it seems like, and he's not delivering. So let's try something different. That's my philosophy, and it's not a huge change. Just actually hand the ball off a few more times. All right. Let's see if we have any other comments. I mean, we're 30 minutes in, and the show runs 30 to 40 minutes, unless we're really, really having a good conversation. So let me just look in the comments one more time before we start to wrap up the show, see if there's anything out there. Richard Miles, question: Is it the play calling or the receivers not on the same page, or is it Russell Wilson? Richard, thank you for coming in from Facebook, and I appreciate it. I think this is the first time I've seen you on the show, and it's a great question. I think it's some of both, really. I think that with the West Coast offensive scheme, the receivers and the quarterback have to read the same route, right? They have to decide what route to run in the moment, and I don't think that's happening. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think Russell Wilson is struggling to see the entire field, and he is awful throwing to the left. his completion percentage throwing to the left is dreadful. It's, it's 10 to 20 percentage points lower than the average this season. So he's struggling. So it's Russell Wilson, and you're right. I think they're just not on the same page, and you can see it when Russell Wilson's throwing to nobody. Right? It's just it's awful. And I think some of the play calls are curious at best, especially on the goal line. They need to change that up. I don't know why they didn't learn from the very first game that you shouldn't line up in shotgun right on the goal line and try and score when you can get under center and have other options. So I think I think it's a little of all three of what you said. So all right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody coming in. I appreciate the new folks coming in, and as the people that are always here. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Remember, don't forget to follow others here on Mile High Huddle YouTube. There's plenty of great shows. Was on the show Mile High Insiders on Wednesday night. It was great with Luke Patterson, and Building the Broncos, another great show I was on this week. They're all great shows. Check them out. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want to see some of my takes during the week, you can follow me at Thomas Hall NFL on Twitter. And make sure you follow Scott Kennedy on Twitter. So thank you very much for coming in. I'm going to wrap up the show, as I always do, with the Mile High Legend. And it's a little bit of history. Hopefully we can have a little bit of a feel-good moment going into the Jets. So Patrick loves sports. He played wide receiver for the Oklahoma Sooners freshman football, and he also won 3 Canadian Junior Football League championships with the Edmonton Huskies. And even after his stint as a football player, didn't go anywhere after college, and he became a successful lawyer and executive, but he continued to compete in sports. So he completed multiple Ironman triathlons, which exemplified his drive, his willpower, and ability to succeed at what he set his mind to. And he was driven to succeed. But when his love of sports and desire to succeed at them could not be physically accomplished, he decided to pursue another opportunity, and that was sports ownership. And what followed was one of the most successful tenures of any sports franchise. And Patrick's goal was to be the best, and he found his true calling. He put his heart and soul into the team, and along with incredible leadership, his goal was to win championships. And the ultimate goal was ever present and permeated throughout the entire team. And during his tenure, the team competed in 7 championships, winning 3. In the 3 decades that he owned the team, it had a greater winning percentage than all but 3 of the major sports franchises. And you know him as Pat Bowlen. Went by Mr. B to the players that played for him. And he saved the Denver Broncos, literally. In 1984, the team was on the brink of bankruptcy. And his purchase kept the Broncos financially stable, and his drive to succeed brought the ultimate fortune, Super Bowl championships. He's a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Broncos Ring of Fame. And his leadership ability was legendary. And for Broncos fans, he will always remain in our hearts. So let's give it up for Pat Bowlen and what he was able to do for Broncos country and the Denver Broncos. Thank you for joining the show, and have a great day, Broncos fans.